Hey, uh, we're getting into wrapping up the American Revolution at this point, and we need to think about the government that we're going to create. The colonial groups, the colonial authorities, uh, it's becoming more and more apparent that it's likely, anyway, that they will be able to pull this off. They will be able to do ultimately win their independence. And so, toward the end of the American Revolution, the founders are going to come up with a system of government called the Articles of Confederation. The United States Constitution does not exist yet. It's not going to exist until 1783. So for right now, we are going to operate under the Articles of Confederation. Um, the best way to probably think about these in today's terms, probably like the European Union. The Articles of Confederation are a very, very weak form of government. Every state that comes out of the Articles that becomes a part of the United States is almost going to be an independent state. They can uh, largely pass a lot of their own laws. That's continued on today. But they don't have to abide by any treaties that the United States government passes. Um, there's not a lot of strength from the central government. Uh, on the states. Like I said, the states are pretty much going to act like the European Union. Uh, we can do things to help out the national government, but we're not required to do so. Um, and there's a logic behind this. It doesn't, from our point of view today, this does not seem like a good idea. And very quickly, for the founders, they will realize that this is not a good idea. As you read ahead a little bit, you'll encounter an event called Shays' Rebellion. A group of frontier farmers up in Massachusetts uh, decide to rebel against the state government of Massachusetts. And the state government calls out the militia. Well, the militia is made up of a lot of farmers as well. And so they're not interested in putting down this rebellion against their own people. And the national government doesn't have a standing army. Uh, and so it can't really do anything against this militia that's going kind of wild in Massachusetts. And eventually, a group of wealthy merchants are going to raise a private army to put down this rebellion. But I mean, think about that. This is a rebellion of about 2,000 farmers, and it's a serious threat. It absolutely is. But what if Spain actually attacks the United States, or if France attacks, or here in a couple of decades, if England decides to launch another war against the United States, if we can't put down you know a militia of 2,000 people, we're going to have a hard time against an actual country. Uh, we also, have a very hard time passing any kind of taxes, any kind of national import taxes. There's several attempts at that, and they go nowhere. So, but this first government, the Articles of Confederation, is an extremely, extremely, extremely weak government. And like I said, it sounds like a bad idea, and the founders will realize it's a bad idea about a decade into it. But they do approach this with some logic. It does make sense at the outset. We just have the benefit of hindsight. When they approach this, though, during the Revolution, they are fighting a war against a strong central government, that of England, against a central figure in that government, George III. And they feel like, understandably, that government, English government, that figure, George III have a lot of centralized power and concentrated into one person, one government. And we don't want to recreate something like that. Absolutely not. And, you know, if we create a strong central government here at home, there's a very real possibility that within 15, 20 years, the United States will be forced to go to war with that central government of our own creation. And so we definitely don't want to create the very thing that we just went to war against. Uh, and so, even though this is, it turns out that this isn't a good idea at all, the Articles of Confederation does have a lot of logic behind it. It does make sense from their point of view. We want a very weak government with not a lot of power, a lot of decentralized power. Every state basically is operating as its own sovereign entity for the most part. And we don't want, things like one of the big things that comes out of the revolution is the United States does not have a standing army. That harkens back to, following the French and Indian War. When that ends in 1763, the English leave a lot of troops in the colonies. And, there's a big suspicion there that, why are these troops here? Are they going to, they were just combating the French. Are they going to start, muscling us around instead? Uh, so there's a big concern there as well. And so a lot of the things that happen in the Articles of Confederation are reactions to the realities that these people just faced in the years leading up to the revolution. So, again, it sounds like a bad idea, but it does turn out to make sense. They're reacting against a strong centralized government, so they're going to create a weak decentralized government. And read up on Shays' Rebellion. It'll go into more detail about why that's a threat, and then why, ultimately that's sort of the trigger for this new government, this newly independent United States, to then switch to a centralized federal system of government where the federal government, national government, shares power with the states rather than having the states almost operate as sovereign entities in themselves. So, where each of these turning points kind of makes sense, and explore Shays' Rebellion as we do that, and see how that is a turning point. Talk to you later.